Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Matt Camper, and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends, and another in our series of I Built Them, so you don't have to. I was away for work this week, but we are finally getting to this video, which I wanted to get out there because it does involve one of the fusion champions, the epic Tomoe. She's a support champion. She's a little bit different, a little bit interesting to use, so without further ado, let's jump right in and take a look at the epic champion from the Shadowkin faction. It's Tomoe. Thick as Thieves places a counterattack buff on a target ally for 2 turns. Places a counterattack buff for 3 turns if the ally is from the Shadowkin faction. Then fills the turn meters of all allies by 15% and places a 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Also places a 30% increased crit rate buff for 2 turns on allies from the Shadowkin faction. Brethren, passive, increases all heals and turn meter fill effects by 20% when used on allies from the Shadowkin faction. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, only one will activate. Bamboozle, attacks all enemies, has a 75, bookable to 100% chance of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Stab and Grab, attacks one enemy, has a 30%, bookable to 50% chance of stealing 1 random buff from the target. Right, so there was Tomoe's kit. Obviously, I don't have her built out for damage. That's not where she's going to be used. That's not what she's useful for. But I do want to talk about her kit in a little bit more than just showcasing it, and why I think that she's actually a champion that you may want to build. I do caution you, as with all champions, it really depends on your account, your champions, your skill level, your spend level in the game as to whether a champion like this is worth putting resources in. But what I see right away are 2 things that tell me that this is a Faction Wars goddess. First of all, 24% speed and faction crypts. 24% speed is a very high speed boost for an aura, and that alone allows you to build your champions with less speed and still be able to get 2-to-1 attacks, which is very strong in Faction Wars in general, especially getting to those higher levels, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21. So in that in itself, I think she's well worth the price of admission. On top of that, you get increases all heals and turn meter fill effects by 20% when used on allies from the Shadowkin faction. We're going to do a little testing on this upcoming, but that's kind of a big deal. Keep in mind that it says when used on allies from the Shadowkin. It doesn't mean when sourced by Shadowkin. So for example, we're going to test this. You should see improved heals from Fenisol, for example, just picking a one, if he's healing Shadowkin champions with her on there as compared to not, which means you can still use non-Shadowkin faction champions and getting this passive to proc. But there's more to do with Shadowkin than this here. She places a counterattack buff on an ally for 2 turns. We're going to show you how she decides who to put that on. And it's 3 turns instead if the ally is from Shadowkin. Big deal. Also, fills the turn meters of all allies by 15%. Keep in mind, the passive will proc with her on other Shadowkins, including herself, and places a 30% increased crit damage for 2 turns, places an increased crit rate for 2 turns on all allies from the Shadowkin faction, including herself. And those are important things when you see some of the testing we're going to be doing in this video in a minute. Her A2, this is a general. This is why I like her. She has a generally useful ability, even without all this Shadowkin bullshit. She's strong. She has a decreased attack. It is a big boy decreased attack at 100% on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. That's a big deal. Now, the books are a little high, maybe not too bad. There's 14 books total. That's in that kind of middle range. I prefer champions to be around the 11, 12, but whatever. It's an epic. It's not nearly as bad as when it's a legendary champion. So from that perspective, not too bad. Her A1 has that 50% when book chance of stealing a random buff. That is a great 50-50 chance to steal a random buff. And it's stealing, not just removing. So I like that on her overall. It just means that she's gonna be more useful in other areas of the game than just faction wars. And I like that when she's got some other abilities, meaning she's gonna be used even outside of Shadowkin. She's gonna be used even outside of with Shadowkin champions, and that just makes her generally more useful. As far as where we're going to take her to a few places. Let me show you how I built her out here. We built her in protection gear. The reason why I decided to go with protection is because she is doing this here, and if we can keep some of that stuff protected, it's just going to increase our odds of that working in our favor when fighting things like, for example, the Hydra, which we're absolutely going to showcase her in. We're not going to do a full Hydra run, but I'm going to walk through the theory behind using a champion like this in Hydra. So because of that, we did build her out for 400 resistance. That's going to be good for hard Hydra at least, which is where I think a champion like this wheelhouse is with people who may not have a whole lot of champions. You may want something to help you get through Hydra. Here's a champion that's going to help you. I'm going to show you how that's going to work. We have her at 220 speed. We have her at 51,000 HP, 3,200 defense, 2,000 attack. And like I said, 400 resistance. We do have that accuracy up to 239. If you were going to use her as a Hydra, you may want to bump that up a little bit just so it has a better chance of landing on all the heads. But again, pretty solid all-around build for her. In, again, protection. I do also have her in resistance, a resistance banner that is a blood shield banner. So she's going to be able to put, every time she attacks, she's going to put another buff on herself. And we'll talk about what that helps or maybe doesn't help in the coming in the coming tests. Now, as for Masteries, boy, there was a lot of different ways I wanted to take her. I think this is a very versatile support, so I think you could argue if that A2 is very important to you, you can go Eagle Eye along with the turn meter manipulation. I put her at Timely Intervention because I do want her to get extra turns when an ally drops before. It's just giving her more turn meter. That's giving her more abilities to get these different things off. I don't know if that was the right choice, but I did want to test with it. I think you could argue Unshakable would be a really good one. Probably, if I were to redo this, I'd probably go to Unshakable. My theory behind Timely Intervention is it's just going to give her more chances, like I said, to put that counterattack up, which also fills turn meters. So think about this. You have a champion that's dying, probably an attack-based champion. They're usually the ones that die first. Then she steps up. She's putting a counterattack. She's increasing crit damage, increased crit rate, increasing turn meters of all allies when that happens, potentially if this is up, or she's decreasing attack, or she's stealing buffs. So I just felt like that was a good support option. Again, like I said, I'd probably go with the resistance based on how I've been using her, but at the time, that's what I thought we were going to do. So next, I want to take her into a little test bed. We're going to take her to the Doom Tower, just so I can show you how her skill set works and talk a little bit about how it's best to use her. All right, so here we are in the Doom Tower Secret Room 1. It's all epic. It's a nice little place to test her out. We have her there. Obviously, she's not going to get the speed here. Don't worry, we will be taking her into Faction Crypts as well, so do not panic. We're going to have it. So let's first bring in all champions of the Shadowkin variety, just to have that. So some skills automatically default to the lead. So what we want to do here, hey, we have a lead with a good ability on. He's got a stun on there, but as you can see, it didn't happen. It's over on Shawnee here, which is also good. You know it's going to go on Shawnee, so she's going to have that extra counterattack, which means she's going to do some good, strong hitting here. And we'll let it play for a little bit, just kind of show you. Again, I'm not... Oh, God, I can't get that right angle. Again, we're not trying to... we're not trying to showcase her in this particular room. It's just to kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen with her abilities. She doesn't hit badly, but she's definitely not going to be your first choice in the damage variety. And in this case, you see how it works. I think overall, a team like this works really well. You see Shani, what I would do is, because you know that she's going to put it here, then you also know that she's going to get a 3-turn and a 2-turn. So with a champion, especially with a champion like Shani, who already gets increased crit rate depending on her accuracy, you can actually put her even lower crit rate because you know this is going to be on for 2 turns, and that's be very helpful. It's going to be a good way to do it. It's not quite 100% like it is when it's a self buff, but pretty good. Now, so it puts it on Shani, so we know that we do not have to have the lead. That's the reason why I want to do this. You can see that the lead did not get that ability. So let's take a look and see what does get that ability. Now, Shani in that particular case is the most fragile, but it's not the most fragile, and we know that because I did do a test, and I'll do the test again for you. I'll replicate the test one more time. Of course, these two are big Berthas, so they're not going to be any problems. But let's put in a champion with nothing. So nothing champion, or no offense, Gala, you're an amazing champion, but no big damage there. She's just fodder for me. She's feed, and we'll see where that puts. Now this is actually going to put it on herself in this particular case, and we'll get around to telling you why that's going to happen. You see, she puts it on herself, so it has nothing to do with vulnerability, has nothing to do with who's got the lowest HP or anything like that. We've proven that. Okay, now we're going to go back out and we're going to really show you what this is about. Now, I originally thought it was about damage potential, but what I found is that is absolutely not the case, and I'll show you why we proved that wrong. Right here, and let's do this so I don't have to do this every time. By the way, I hate the fact that this always keeps going. Okay, so now this time, who do you think this is going to go to? If it was about damage potential, my Magnar hits very hard. He's the hardest hitting champion of this group. He's also got the most HP, or maybe the second most HP. So whatever the case is, well, it goes to it went to Husk. Well, that makes no sense. Why did it go to Husk? Because he's got better damage potential than our boy, right? Maybe that's the case. Maybe he's got more damage potential than Magnar because of his enemy max HP. So we should double test that all the time, triple test it. We'll keep Magnar in here, and we'll put Magnar in with Nagoro and see who gets that. Well, guess what? It's going to be Nagoro. And so it has nothing to do with damage. What it is ultimately, as I had found out, and I'm sure half of you are like, well, I already knew that. You're an idiot. And that's true. I am an idiot, and that probably you already knew that. But what it is actually doing, it is picking the person with the highest attack. So she's going to always put it on the champion with the highest attack. So now knowing that, you can absolutely use her to pinpoint what you need to have happen on auto. She's always going to put her the highest attack. That's going to be big for Faction Wars. We're going to try that out because that's a good thing to know. Now, I wish it was damage, because in the case of Magnar, I would have rather it had on Magnar because he's the highest damage potential. His A1 hits pretty decent. But nonetheless, we know that it's attack, which is good. So we want to bring in champions with strong, high attack champions with strong A1. That's going to be the goal when pairing her on auto. So more on that in a little bit. So what are we going to do here? I want to do one more test, and that's the heal test. We're going to bring in Thenisol. And the best part about this test, I don't even have to really have... I don't have to have him in any particular outfit. He can just come in as he is. So I don't care if he's got gear right now. We're just gonna take a look at his heals with her. By the way, she puts on Nagoru. We'll let this go. All right. So his heal here, right here. It's not going to show me his skill ability. That's weird. Usually that pops up. You see the heals, 24, 29. Did you notice that? 24 on himself, 29 on. So even though he's not, and I just wanted to confirm that for you all because sometimes you wonder, even though he's not, we'll show that one more time because it was in 2x speed because I wasn't paying attention. This game's acting a little glitchy right now. Replay, not on auto. So again, we'll let the first group take their turns. Okay, one time. His heal here again. Why isn't it showing up the tooltip? Right, you see it 29, 30, 24. So what's happening is her passive is giving these 4 better heals than himself, and it's just, and it actually pretty substantial, right? 5k difference. So again, you can use that to your advantage even when you're not using specific Shadowkin, just knowing that you're gonna extra heal your Shadowkin champions with that passive. Okay, so that's it for that testing. I just wanted to show you how her passive and how that A3 works. And this was just an easy way that didn't cost me energy to test that out. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take her into the Hydra. And the reason why I want to talk about Hydra is because I think, not as a mainstay, but I think this is a champion. Say you want to bring her into hard or brutal, and you want to build a team. So you see I've already done some testing. Get out of the way. So this is kind of one example of where you can use her. Now I want to show you where you can't use her first. So we're going to bring in, it really doesn't matter who. We'll say Sir Artemage, whatever. It doesn't matter. So this team, I've purposely taken out my Krisk for. And the reason why I've taken out Krisk is because I want to show you when you don't have Krisk or any particular champion that you use, there's more than just Krisk, where you know they're going to self-buff themselves with extended buffs. So that's where you know the Head of Mischief is going to always target. That's our goal. And in this particular case, I'm going to show you if I put it to say, I want to put it to him because he's got a really good A1. This actually isn't going to work, and hopefully you'll see why. Well, it hit her. The reason it hit her is, and it's really hard to see here, she is going to get that. Remember, there's that crit rate buff. If you are a Shadowkin faction, she'll put a crit rate buff on all Shadowkin faction, including herself. So while this got that extra buff, that counterattack buff on my Cupidus, which is in theory a really good idea, although Cupidus auto has his own counterattack, but you would, any other champion, think of Martial Ed, for example. But what happens is she has an extra buff here, so they're actually equal. So it's not going to really work for you unless you make sure they both have that high resistance, which is perfectly fine. That might be a good way to do it. So what I would counter in saying is, if you want to use a champion like this, there's 2 ways to do it. First, as you saw originally, we have it by faction. Let's run all the way down here. I think he's in the vault. So you can bring in 2 Shadowkin faction. And one of the Shadowkin who is actually really good in this encounter, some encounters, this one might not be the best because there's 2 force affinity, but Ninja does do reasonably well damage, especially you got him for free, you're only hitting hard level. I think it's a no-brainer to use someone like Ninja in that instance. And you'll see how you can use this to your advantage. Now, keep in mind, I didn't actually put in a high resistance Ninja because I think we can just discuss this thing here. And so what you would be able to do is make a high resistance Ninja and then use this on Ninja, because remember, he's getting a 3-turn counter and he's getting that extra buff. So he has 6 buffs. Even if one of these has some sort of other buff that they might put on themselves, he's still going to have 1. He's getting 2 extra buffs over everyone else except for her, and he's getting 1 extra buff over her. So obviously I'd want to take off her blood shield accessories if I was going to use her here. But that gives you that ability to now have the Head of Mischief target specifically him. Now, Head of Mischief is going to steal it because, frankly, he doesn't have very good resistance. But obviously you would build in that resistance. So that's a way that you could absolutely use her in the Hydra. She's pretty consistent. The other way I would think of using her, absolutely, and I think it works really well. And let's put in... I don't even know why I'm thinking about that. I just don't... I hate putting in champions that make no sense, because then someone will be like, why did you put so-and-so? He's not a Hydra champion. Man. So... oh, I'm a jerk. I'm sorry. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this. So the other thing you can do, which will achieve the same result. So why are you bringing her in to this battle? Is she bringing enough to this encounter to be worthwhile? And the answer is yes. It's not just about that buff, but she can self-buff, and you make her your high resistance, and then she's gonna be useful for you. But it's not just about her. Hey, he actually targeted. That's nice. Oh, that's actually a lot of damage. So you see there, she resisted it. Very good. She counters as well. Very nice. I didn't put a team together to counter all this crap. You could probably put her in some sort of life steal. I'm trying to think, what's the other one called? I can't remember what the other one, the Doom Tower one's called. Is it blood curse or blood shield or something? I don't remember now. But some sort of life steal so that she keeps herself alive. And because that's 3 turns, she's going to have more buffs than everyone else. But she does more than just buff. And I think that's important to remember. She's not all just about her A1, which is what makes her so incredible. She also has a very strong A3. She also has a very strong A2 and A1. Remember, she's able to put decreased attack on the enemy, which for a lot of you entering that normal to hard level is going to be very strong for your team. This is very good. She's got a very good overall kit, in my opinion. See if we get double lucky kit. Oh my god, that's twice we were able to attack him. So absolutely. Now, obviously our speeds are off, so you see there's more here than here. That's obvious. You know, if you're building on a team, you don't want someone as slow as my brackets in the same team, but you do get, I hope the gist of it is that she's able to put these extra buffs on herself, which is going to allow her to be the target for the mischief. And on top of it, she can heal herself because she's got the counter attack. And on top of it, because I put her in protection, she's protecting. Otherwise, you would probably put her in lifesteal so that she can get some of that health back. And you can see absolutely how you use her. Keep in mind that A1 also has a random chance to steal, which is not at all a bad idea to have. And you see we get there, see if we get a chance. Of course, she doesn't steal it. She attacks twice and still doesn't steal it. Remember, her A1 has a 50-50 chance of stealing buffs every time. So as this guy keeps hitting her, she's going to keep going back and having a chance to steal these buffs. In fact, I'm a little bit annoyed that she didn't steal a buff there. So I'm not going to play with the whole Hydra key, but I know I rambled a little bit, but hopefully you understand. Look, if you're putting self-buff on there, she becomes the target for the Head of Mischief. If you have 2 Shadowkin in, you can also use it on another Shadowkin to achieve the same result, like a Ninja, to bring in here. And Ninja can be the Hydra, the Head of Mischief target. Either way, absolutely useful, but you're not just bringing her in there for that, which is what makes her a lot more useful in Hydra, because she also has that decreased attack AoE, which is very helpful in this encounter, especially when you're new to it. And on top of it, she does steal buffs, and some of these Hydra boss heads do put some pretty crazy buffs. We don't have the Head of Suffering here, but he puts that reflect damage. She can steal that. That's amazing. We have the Head of Wrath, who does self-buff for attack damage. That would be great if she could steal that. So there's a lot of things she can do aside from the fact of creating that target. So I think she's overall a very useful champion in this. The final thing I want to do is we want to take her into the... I nearly put end battle. Boy, that would have been embarrassing. So the last place, of course, is the most important place for her. It's why I think that even advanced accounts may want to take a look at her, and that's Faction Wars. It just so happens one of the rare times I make one of these videos, and we have a Faction Wars open. So this is the usual team I use. It's a pretty good team. I probably wouldn't change it, but not all of you are necessarily going to have a team of this caliber. It's part of your daily grind. So let's take out Lady Kimmy, and we'll put in Tomoe, and we'll put her in that lead to give us that extra speed. We'll just kind of show you where I think, she's got that useful thing. She's got the boost. She's got that counterattack piece. It's going to be very nice overall group, right? We're getting that on a champion that does some really good damage. And because of the speed, it just means that we're look how many, like, we're getting the everyone getting to go twice. I think even 3 times because of the mastery that reduces turn meter. But it just makes it overall useful. I think she's very good here. And you can probably cheat a little bit and give her a little bit extra damage in the Faction Wars because it's not exactly as difficult as it is in some areas. I think this is where she's really useful because a lot of the times if you don't have end game level speed accounts, that the Man-Eater is going to put up his buffs. And having a champion on their A1 that can counter that, I'm going to see if hopefully it does it on auto. See, this is really good too because we're getting a champion. So there, we have that buff up. This is a pain in the butt. It's a time waster, but of course she uses her A2. But the hope here and the likelihood here is she's going to be able to steal some of those buffs at some point. She failed there. Really kind of angers me. I don't think I've actually seen her steal a buff yet, even though it's a 50-50 chance. So it'd really be nice if we got that on this. Of course we're not. Thanks a lot. There, no, still. This is I'd like a recount on her A1, please. She has not stolen a buff yet. That's crazy. Yeah, she's just not gonna... Hey, she stole a buff! She stole a buff. It was the wrong buff, but who cares? So that's gonna be a little bit helpful there. And then here, you're just getting better speed. Keep in mind, she's also increasing crit damage. So I've got some pretty hefty nukers here. Especially with Nogoro, who is built really for nuking. But even Genzen hits really hard. And you have, obviously, Ninja hitting hard. So when she's going to put those buffs up, it's just going to help the whole team out that much more. And this might be the difference maker on getting you through this encounter in one piece. And if that is the case, then that alone should be... We're just a little bit off, and it's because of that last... my unluckiness on that last wave. But so we didn't get the 3-star, but you know what? Very useful ability here, very useful champion in this. That extra speed, the extra damage, because of the crit damage increase, all that stuff, very helpful, very useful in here. Sinogoro, for those of you who didn't get to see, actually outdeals Ninja's damage. I don't know if Ninja's in full gear right now. So yeah, overall, really like her. But why don't we go to final thoughts, and we'll just kind of wrap up what I think about this champion, Tomoe. My final thoughts on Tomoe, I got to be honest. She's not game-breaking. She's not game-changing for you. She's not going to make things... she's not Magnar, right? She's not Demetha. She's not that level. But what you do have is a relatively useful champion for more than just Faction Wars. And there's nothing better than to be able to say, here's a champion who isn't just a Faction Wars champion, or worse, not even a Faction Wars champion. Absolutely, she's great for Faction Wars because of her aura and because of this ability that does so much for the Shadowkin faction. And here there's some extra abilities. But overall, we showed how you can use her in Hydra to your advantage. An absolute great ability. But she's not just a passenger, and I hate bringing in champions that are just passengers, meaning... In this case, okay, so you bring her so she's the target for the head of Mischief, but then she doesn't do anything else. But in this case, she does, because she has an A2 that puts down a decreased attack, and as much as my recording had the worst luck ever, she has this right here, which steals a random buff. It's going to be helpful in Hydra. It's going to be helpful, hopefully, other than our run, in Shadowkin. But overall, very good, strong kit. good support kit on a good champion. Also, it was nice to know, a couple little caveats that you need to remember is that this counterattack targeting will happen to the champion with the highest attack score. You can play with that a little bit, you can mess with it. Maybe you make a Magnar with a little higher attack so that it goes to him if you're using him, or just bring in an attack nuker and you know that that's the champion that's going to get this. The other thing to know is that this passive absolutely works on Shadowkin, not just for Shadowkin. What I mean by that is, we brought in Thanasil, he healed the whole team, Shadowkin members got more heals, even though Thanasil is not Shadowkin. So that's an important thing to remember that's going to be helpful for both turn meter and heals. That means you have her with Arbiter, guess what? Arbiter's boosting more, Lysandre's boosting more on Shadowkin champions. So it's a kind of a neat mechanic. This is probably, in my opinion, my favorite mechanic I've seen that's specific to their own faction, because it doesn't negate using other champions in that mix. It's still a bit gimmicky, but overall I think it's probably the best gimmicky thing they've put in. So I'm really excited about it. Overall, I think she's a solid champion. I think she's absolutely usable. And I would recommend probably half of the player base should be building this champion out, because it's going to give you a solid Shadowkin champion. It's going to give you a solid option in Hydra, especially if you're trying that second or third key. Champion like this will come in clutch for 90% of the rotations that have to deal with that stupid Head of Mischief. So I think overall, yeah, you've got a lot of options with her. You've got a lot of build options. And overall, I think it's a solid champ that you can use in just about anywhere in the game, should you need to. That's all I have for today. I hope you appreciate it. If you did, consider giving me a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And most importantly, as always, my friends, thank you very much for watching the video. I appreciate you. Please be kind, be safe, and we'll see you in the next one.